Make some noise for your host, Kid Copious.
What up, perps? Kid Copious, back in the bunker. Purple State Party, you know what we're here to do. We're going to rep America, the center, and common sense, and having a little fun while doing it. I don't know how fun this week's going to be, though, but we shall see. So, title of this episode is Gone with the Brandon. As you can see, people have a low opinion of this guy. And there's good reason, you know. I believe that he's provoking Putin into actually attacking Ukraine so that they can distract from the mess that they've made. You know, the truth of the matter is Trump did have 4 years of peace. And, you know, this is on the Democrats. I think they're handling it quite poorly. I think they're whipping the rhetoric up. I really think that they've provoked him into whatever happens. And I'm not saying that because I don't like Biden. I'm saying that because that's what I see. You know, that's what I'm trying to bring here, man. You know, he's done these things, you know. He's called American elections illegitimate. He's whipped up this fervor over Jim Crow 2.0 that wasn't true. He slandered Democrats as racist because that's their tactic. You know, he doesn't believe in polls. He's bragged about supply shortages. He tries to play it off like it's a good thing. He calls his work amazing. He hasn't done anything. He's passed a few things that made sense to a majority of Americans. The infrastructure bill was one of them. But he threw money at problems that didn't need to have money thrown at it. He's caused inflation. He's caused inflation by shutting down pipelines, shutting down drilling, signaling that America is not going to produce its own energy, saying, oh, you know, we're going to live off solar and wind. And OPEC raised prices. That's what happens, you know. Again, you know, when you have 10,000 units sitting in a warehouse and you go to negotiate to buy 1,000 more, you have some power because you can say, hey, give me a good price on this 1,000 or I'll just use 1,000 out that I have in my warehouse. You know, that's how businesses is run. You know, you leverage what you have or what you can get from somebody else to, you know, get the best price. But since they don't care, they've let gas prices go through the roof. And if you don't think gas price is rising, it goes into inflation, then you don't know shit about the supply chain. Everything is trucked. That's how a large portion of our supplies get to where they need to be, on some sort of fossil fuel right now. So if you raise prices on it, it's going to raise prices across the board. You know? One thing I definitely believe in wholeheartedly is term limits. Pelosi is a great example of why. Because they get entrenched. They figure out all the little loopholes, all the little avenues to make money. You know, the longer you're in office, the more corruptible or corrupt you become. And she says here, it's not right for Manchin to say what we're doing is contributing to inflation. But it is. It simply is. Pumping money into the economy and shutting down our fuel sources are two leading things that have led to inflation. It just is. And she's just lying. She's misinforming voters on the truth of the matter. You know? All kinds of... Defund the police is not the position of the Democratic Party. Then why have democratically run cities defunded their police? I mean, again, these are things that you can see with your own eyes, and they are lying. They are lying, and it's important that we talk about these lies up front right now because, as we're going to see in a little bit here, you know, their lies have consequences, and now they're trying to figure out ways to make the lies even more protected, so to speak. We had a 7.5 rate of inflation, the fastest since February of 1982. A lot of people out there weren't even born yet, have never seen inflation like this. And they want to push for more money and more money. And one of the things at the heart of all of this is the electric vehicle debate. As we'll see later on, again, that's a thing that's doomed to failure. But they don't care. They have their money. They don't care if you don't have yours. You know, one thing we're also seeing as a side result of this is, you know, the Democrats love to talk about gun control, but yet their policies are driving up gun purchases because people don't feel safe. Look, I mean, if you want to remove the police or you want to reduce the police, that's great. But if we can't rely on the police, then we have to rely on ourselves. That's just a simple fact of human survival. They also like to use, you know, again, but we're going to talk about this in a little bit here about who's really spreading all the misinformation. It's very easy to run around and say that Republicans are spreading vaccine misinformation. But they themselves, the Democrats themselves, are creating policies based on bad information. The truth, 43% of people let go with no bail on a serious charge in New York City were rearrested. And they based their study on that, They based their laws on this study that claims that only 2% of defendants released under the new law get rearrested for a violent felony while their case is pending. Well, okay, so we have this huge difference here. We have 2 and we have 43%. Okay? So what is the number? Where does that come from? And one of the places where that comes from is that the old bail laws basically said that you had, you know, if you committed something like, you know, a minor assault or a DWI, or maybe you jumped over the turnstiles at the subway, suspended license, something like that, okay, you were released without bail. Now, of course, if somebody, let's say my wife gets arrested for DWI, okay, and she's released without bail, very, very unlikely that she's then going to turn around and commit a violent offense, because she wasn't arrested for a violent offense. She wasn't arrested for some sort of like theft-related crime or robbery or one of those types of crimes, drug dealing, something like that. No, it was a DWI, and she was released, so 2%. But then when you start looking at people who were actually arrested for something that was serious, something that shows criminal intent, you know, yes, and I'm not saying DWI is not criminal intent. You're breaking the law. Don't get me wrong on that. But there's a difference between doing something stupid like DWI and committing a crime like a breaking and entering. But when you release gang members and mentally ill people under no bail, 43% of them commit a violent crime before they're even prosecuted again, while their case is pending. 43%. So that doesn't seem like a very good policy, because, again, you got to keep in mind, 43% of them are caught, and we can confirm that they committed a violent crime. How many people were released on no bail, committed a crime, and got away with it? They haven't been caught yet. We don't know it's them. So that number is much higher. So, you know, to say that half of them are going to reoffend before their cases, even the first case is settled, we're seeing it. We're seeing people getting arrested 3 times right here locally. There was a man who was arrested 3 times in 16 hours. Once for resisting, okay, during a jaywalking. Okay, so fine, they let him out. Commercial burglary, they arrest him, they let him out. Residential burglary. Residential burglary is one of those things that could turn into a very, very bad situation. And again, we're going to get to this here. We're going to get to why the theme right now is this misinformation from the left. They took down Twitter, who is just an agent at this point of the left, took down an account called Defiant Els. And his only crime, their only crime, I guess, was posting things that were hypocritical. about, using people's words against them. Like Joe here, for example, okay? So she says she would rather eat rancid durian left in a hot car for 12 days while listening to Josh Groban sing Christmas songs before I would take some bullshit Trump vaccine. You? Then, what? Well, I guess less than a year later, who's got 2 thumbs and an appointment for a COVID vaccine? So again, she's speaking out originally back in September of 2020. She's speaking out against taking vaccines. That wasn't labeled as, when it was under Trump, that wasn't misinformation. We could all question it all we want. We need to have, in this country, for us to survive, for us to be happy, for us to be America again, we have to have some sort of standard. Okay? If you're going to allow Democrats to question vaccines when there's a Republican president, but not the reverse, we're heading down a slippery slope. And we're going to see it because we're about to hit that slippery slope. But first, I want some good news, just to liven it up a little bit. 3 progressive San Francisco school board members booted in landslide vote. These people wanted to worry about things like renaming schools that were named after George Washington because, he's a racist. And Lincoln, too. That's what they really wanted to do. They were worried about painting. They wanted to paint over an iconic mural because it depicted things that they weren't comfortable with anymore about George Washington. They spent 2 hours. 2 hours these people got paid to discuss whether or not a gay dad could join a women's group at one of the schools that basically was like something like the PTA. They were wasting their time on the whole bullshit world of equity instead of worrying about their job, which is the schools, the school districts, people learning. Kids not in school. How do we get them back into school? How do we get kids to learn what they need to learn so that they can survive in the real world? No, equity. So earlier, I was talking about some of the misinformation that's come out from different Democrats. Pelosi, as we'll see later, Psaki, just your general Democrats saying, I'm not going to take Trump's vaccine. And as soon as Biden gets into office, they take it. That's misinformation, okay? Some bullshit Trump vaccine. That's what the lady had said. So now, Governor Newsom of California here is planning a new agency to combat right-wing news misinformation. Really, that sounds horrifying. And that should horrify every single person who lives in America and in California especially. They want this bastard to run for president. This lying sack of elitist shit is connected to people like Pelosi and Soros and the Gettys. They don't give a shit, okay? They just want the biggest cut of the pie that they can get, and they're going to fuck us all over doing it. And they are setting up their own propaganda agency. That's what it is. When the government gets involved in tampering with the First Amendment, it's propaganda. All right? And that's what this is. He says he needs to combat what is defined as misinformation coming from conservative-focused news channels. So, in other words, his opposition. He's going to create a government agency to go after his opposition. You know who else did that? A man by the name of Hitler. Hitler did the exact same thing. Okay? If he didn't like somebody, they disappeared. That's what he did to reporters. Okay? Newsom is going down the same route. But he has a reason. He has a reason. See, the reason is because this one police officer in Washington State, okay, see, he didn't want to get a vaccine. And the anti-vaxxers were like, you're our hero, dude. And he lost his job because he didn't get his vaccine. And he died. He died from it. Oh, my goodness. This guy didn't get the vaccine and he died. Boy, we need to shut down the news agencies. We need to shut all this stuff down because, wow, this guy died because of it. But no, he didn't. All right? He didn't die because of misinformation, okay? That wasn't the reason. The real reason was he was waiting for a sign from God. To each his own. Look, to each his own. Purple State believes that you can be whoever it is that you want to be. Pure and simple. Okay? I'm not going to deduct points or try to rail in people who are Christian or gay or even Nazis. Go ahead. You want to be a Nazi? Go be a fucking Nazi. Okay? Enjoy it on your own time, and you'll suffer your own consequences in life because people probably aren't going to hire a Nazi or want to work with a Nazi. But again, you're free to do what you want to do. Okay, you could be a member of Antifa. You could be a Democrat. I don't care. All of those things are immaterial to me. All right? But that's why he was waiting for a sign from God. And yes, he was anti-vax. But as you can see right here, he's one of the anti-vaxxers that died, and pro-vaccine commentators took to social media to mock his death. So we actually now have pro-vaccine people. Okay? We had it before, but there's a big difference. As they say right here, he said the government should not be mandating vaccines. Parentheses, even though governments have long required other vaccines. Okay, there's a big difference, all right? And you can see it in the way the CDC and other agencies have changed their definition of a vaccine. This vaccine does not prevent you from getting the disease. It doesn't. It makes it better, they say. I don't know. I have no hard evidence. In other words, it's so hard to compare how people react to COVID. It's very hard to say what those factors are. But we do know one thing. Your overall health and obesity play a part in it, but we don't talk about that. Why is that left off the table? Is that not misinformation? But they mocked the guy, but he expressed religious opposition to the vaccine. At worst, Fox News co-signed his belief. They didn't convince him. But now we have to have a government agency to oversee conservative media. You realize, folks, you could cheer it right now. If you're a lefty, you could cheer it right now. But eventually, as we've seen with Whoopi Goldberg, for example, eventually it's going to come back around and bite you in the ass. Eventually, your corner of the world will be affected. Okay? Because if you let the Democrats and the left come up with these offices of propaganda and shit like that, what happens when the Republicans take power? That was one of the arguments against ending the filibuster, was Democrats were saying we might need it if we're the minority. See, that's the problem. Once you allow them to start down the slippery slope, it's very hard to stop them. You know, and we're looking at what was misinformation. At one point, we could not say it came from a lab in Wuhan, right? And it was purposely left off. It was purposely left off because it'll fuel the conspiracists. But now look, they've tested all of these animals and they've yet to find it. So if it came from nature, where is it? Where is it? The World Health Organization said it came from bats, and a lab leak is extremely unlikely. But now they've backtracked and said, well, we can't rule it out. They checked all of these animals to figure out where did it start, and they haven't found it. And what they have found is that when you look at other animal to human viruses that we've had in the back, SARS, things like that, right? It took a while. It took a while for those diseases to take hold and be able to spread around from patient to patient. But for some reason, COVID-19 was 99.5% optimized to move from human to human. See, it's weird enough to get it from animal to human, but then to get it to go human to human, again, the disease has to evolve and adapt and learn these things. Okay? It's like things that we experience in life, you know. Lots of kids can drive toy cars around, but that doesn't mean you're going to give them the keys to your Escalade. Okay? It takes time. People need to learn. Viruses need to learn. But somehow, COVID came out the gate optimized. And the only way that scientists can really explain that is that it was grown on human cells. It was taught how to spread from human to human. This is what scientists right there say. So where's the misinformation? Joe Rogan, definitely a man of controversy right now. I don't think he's trying to be. And that's just where he ended up. The problem I have with the term misinformation, especially today, is that many of the things we thought of as misinformation just a short while ago are now accepted as fact. It's been like that through human history. You know, people used to lose their lives over scientific theories, where the planets revolve around the sun, or if the sun revolves around the earth, and all of that. They were called heretics, and they were killed. And that's where we're at right now. So, you know, now we're going to entrust a government agency to explain to us what is or isn't misinformation. Well, what if they're the ones who are misinforming? Is that agency going to protect us? Is that agency going to protect us against right and left lies? No. They've said it quite plainly. It's about their opposition. A government agency to shut down their opposition. Okay. And he's doing this with the full backing of, like I said, Soros, Pelosi, Gettys, all of these rich fuckers who just want to tamper with human life. Because he's obviously not trying to win back votes. Right now, he's only got 48% saying that he approved. And again, that's one of those things. I've always said, you know, there's 30% that's always going to be just idiotically loyal to whatever the subject may be. So I think this 48% is probably an inflated number of people who don't want to admit that they voted for Newsom and they're not happy with what he's doing. September 2020, 64%. Democrats across the board are gone with Brandon because we're seeing what their policies really add up to. But he doesn't care. Crime fears, homelessness crisis. People are saying, dude, you got to fix shit. And he's like, no, I'm going to create a new agency to fight against conservative opinions. Yeah, okay, that's fair. Here's the other one they're doing that's really great, is they're desperate to lower fuel costs at this point, but they don't want to drill, so they're going to suspend their gas tax. Although I bet you that doesn't happen here in California. But obviously, they needed the votes. That's what this is about. It's not about climate change. It's not about... These people will sell out whoever. I mean, Obama was one of the big climate change people. He would talk about, you know, the rising sea levels, and then he buys a house on the coast. So I guess he doesn't really believe that sea levels are going to rise that rapidly. You know? But, I like the way this is put right here, you know. They're now floating the idea of a gas tax holiday that would begin now and last until they are safely reelected. I mean, January 1st, 2023. Yeah, wait, and how would that reduce? Well, I mean, in some places like California, it's something like 50 cents a gallon. So, yeah, it adds up pretty quickly. You know? Oh, man. Just a gimmick. BLM really doing themselves no favors again. They paid the $100K bond for an activist charged with the attempted murder of a Louisville mayoral candidate who was Jewish and Democrat. And that motherfucker tried to kill him. And BLM rushes in. The candidate himself even said it's impossible to believe that somebody can attempt murder on Monday and walk out of jail on Wednesday. And he's mentally ill. And they're not doing anything. They're not putting him on any sort of hold. You know? They're just, somebody posted it. And this one kind of explains what's going on. Because Kentucky is experimenting with a bail law that would forbid groups from posting bails, in other words. Because when the judge in his case put up a $100,000 bail, that was pretty high for that particular area, and thought, well, the guy's not going to bail out. He's going to be in jail until his trial. BLM comes along and bails him out. And this is a crazy person. You know? The guy who attempted to assassinate the front runner for the Louisville mayor is walking free 2 days later. 2 days later. Here in California, we have a 26-year-old sexual offender who doesn't have to register because they tried it in juvenile court, because the person was a juvenile at the time of the crime, but not a juvenile when they got caught. And they didn't even ask to move it to adult court. They didn't even put that in front of a judge. They said, yeah, not even going to have to register now. Somebody who would attack a 10-year-old girl is not even going to have to register as a sex offender because of their bad laws. Because of their I don't even know why this guy was even given a bond in the first place. All evidence points to him being crazy. He was a BLM activist who tried to kill a Democratic mayor. Oh, he was Jewish. He wasn't black. So I guess that kind of fits into their thing, because I'm guessing BLM doesn't really like people who aren't black. So we'll go through this really quick, because apparently there was some hubbub about Hillary Clinton's campaign breaking into servers. We don't really know, okay? From what I read, Durham isn't really saying that there was a crime committed. He was just saying this is who this person was working with. This is what they were doing. They were using software that is designed to protect the user, but it could also be used a little bit for spying, I guess. But what's not getting any play is that Hillary Clinton, again at the center of a controversy, people want her investigated. 66% of those people are Democrats. See? And about the same for independents, about 66%. 91% of Republicans. Okay? So, I don't know if she tried to infiltrate, but I do know that there is a little bit of smoke. Something may or may not be going on. Where is the investigation? Why aren't Republicans doing more to investigate? Oh, we're going to investigate it if we take power. Okay. So you're basically blackmailing voters into voting for you before you'll look into it? But we should just be looking into it as a country, not as Democrats and Republicans. We should all want answers on this. Did she or did she not do something improper? Did her campaign participate in illegal activities? Is Hunter Biden a creepy criminal? Is Pelosi's son a creepy criminal? We need answers. We don't need rhetoric that makes us feel good about our side. This is coming from somebody who doesn't really have a side, okay? I've said this time and time again, if you can't figure it out, you really think that, I'm going to get along with your average conservative politician? No. Be honest with you, a lot of my ways in life, I would probably do better extremely on the left. Except that I've seen that their ideas don't work. That's it. I voted for Clinton. And then he screwed us with his stupid healthcare talk that never materialized. And I basically lost my job because my boss was afraid that he was going to have to pay for my insurance. So he reduced my hours to the point where it just wasn't even worth working. And that same poll about Hillary Clinton, look at what we see. 70% of respondents say they believe President Biden's son, Hunter Biden, and the president's brother, Jimmy Biden, be barred from participating in any business involving the Biden administration. So 60-something percent? It seems like Americans are worried about this, but the left doesn't talk about it. Your nightly news, your daily shows, things like that, they don't talk about the rampant corruption that's building in Washington. Okay, I don't want it on either side because, again, if I need, it's the reason why I chose purple. It's not red and it's not blue. Tulsi, I guess she's breaking from her side a little bit. And I mean, I don't know what her angle is, but let's just take it at face value right now. Okay? This may be what's going on. We may have a political party that is using dirty work to win elections. There needs to be an investigation. We need to close this one way or another. We can't just simply allow the media to black it out and it goes away and the corruption continues. Find it. I mean, if you find that Trump was corrupt, great. I literally don't give a shit. If somebody's corrupt, they're corrupt. I don't care what side they're on. I don't care what side they're on. All right? I just don't. So one of the things they're wasting a lot of money on, time, effort, and money on, is this whole idea of electric vehicles. See, we have something out there that's called a hybrid. It has a fossil fuel engine, and it also has an electric engine. Okay? It helps cut emissions because at a lot of times, low speeds, blah, 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 it runs on electricity, it recharges itself. So it uses less fuel, so the oil companies don't make as much money. It doesn't need to be plugged in, so the electrical companies aren't making any money. And you can't raise a lot of taxes off of it because it doesn't use a lot of electricity or gas. Okay? But electric is going to use a lot of fossil fuels, coal, things like that. That's why the gas companies are in on it, because they know they're going to be supplying the fuel for all of these power generators that we're going to need, because wind and solar isn't going to do it. We're seeing the flaws in solar. We have fires. We've already had 2 fires at one plant. Batteries, as I know from my work, are extremely temperamental and do not like extreme temperatures. But anyhow, so let's put up charging stations. Copper wire thieves. Targeted Yosemite. Cleaned it out. They also cleaned out one in Fresno. So, what's going to be done about it? They're putting up that. They're putting up a portable lighting, security camera, and alarm system, which will probably also get stolen because you have neutered the police force. The police force isn't going to rush out to try to save an electric vehicle station, okay? They're not going to. The DAs aren't going to. These people that are stealing this shit are homeless, okay? You can't go and knock on their doors because they ain't got no door, all right? They live in the shadows and you're not cleaning them up, so I don't know what you're going to do. You have to allow for copper to be recycled. Even if you make copper recycling illegal in, let's say, California, they'll just take it to Nevada. They'll take it south of the border. They'll take it somewhere. The Chinese mob will buy it, and then they'll ship it back home. No matter what you do, thieves are going to steal copper wire. And here's the thing about electricity, folks. I don't know if you know a lot about electricity, but you can't put it through bamboo fibers. You can't put it through plastics. You can't put it through most metals, yes, but again, you're talking about efficiency. I mean, do you really want to wait 12 hours for your battery to charge? No, so you're going to have to use copper. You're going to put these things up everywhere, and thieves are going to hit them, and it's all going to blow back on the average citizen. Because, trust me, the politicians are going to keep their fossil-fueled Suburbans because they're going to need them. That's the way they look at it. They'll do whatever they want. They'll be able to survive electricity. They'll have special exemptions for diesel fuel generators in the case of a blackout. This is all I'm going to say about the Olympics. The fact that Richardson can't run because of weed, and the Russian skater, who may or may not be innocent in the whole thing, is allowed to compete using performance-enhancing drugs. Okay, moving on. This is one that really pisses me off, man. I don't know what the fuck your tango is. Is it time we stop calling addiction a disease? Most people think yes. Yeah, most people aren't addicts. Most people don't know what it's like to have a voice in your head. I had a bad day. Yesterday I found out that I'd made some mistakes on my taxes. And I was very depressed. And all I felt like doing was getting drunk to the point where I just passed out. That's the addiction. That's the disease. I'm an alcoholic. And I see people bending over backwards to allow a trans woman to compete against women and break all kinds of records. But nobody gives a fucking shit about me. Getting sober. Why? Hold on. So is addiction a disease? It does not meet the criteria. It's self-acquired. Really? So diabetes isn't a disease because you can self-acquire diabetes. You can fuck your shit up. Liver disease, lots of things out there. Lung cancers, there's lots of things that are self-acquired. And it may be explained as a maladaptive response to an underlying condition. For example, depression or a vague inability to cope with the world. Really? Wow. That's fucking stunning. But what's even more stunning is a related article. Getting sober, why overcoming addiction on your own is totally possible. Unless you're my friend, who at the age of 30, okay, 30, 30 years old, was told by his doctor that he was blowing out his liver. So he decided that he would go cold turkey. He made it about 24 hours, ended up having DTs, had a seizure, and died. Okay? He died. Getting sober on your own is not a good idea. Okay? There's lots of things that modern medicine can do. I know. I've been there, done it a couple times. All right? They can keep you sedated. They can provide medical assistance at a moment's notice in a rehab facility. They can counteract the effects of alcohol and other drugs withdrawals. So, is Gavin Newsom's agency going to go after your tango? Because that's deadly misinformation. All right? I don't know if you can tell, but I'm pretty serious about it. All right? I've been sober a long time, and I've lost people that didn't get out, and I even lost a person when they tried to get out. Psaki gaslights on anti-Asian hate because, yet again, Team Biden has no answers. She did it again. The hate-filled rhetoric and language around the origins of the pandemic. Look, lady, okay? That's where it came from. If you really, you're essentially saying that because Trump said it came from China, that gives people the green light to go out and beat up Asians, Americans, and the like. No, that's not really what it is. You don't really need to give excuses to crazy people, violent people, people who want to hurt. Okay? You don't need to give them an excuse. It's on them. You're trying to blame Trump. Okay? Trump's been gone, and we now know that it's more than likely that it came from a lab, and it's certainly, we already know it came from China. There's nothing you could do about it, even if you didn't have hate-filled rhetoric and language around the origins of the pandemic. It came from China. We all know this. So there's not much that needs to be added to it. They know if they were, she brings that up right now in a couple of recent attacks on Asians. They were crazy homeless people. They were a homeless career criminal, another drifter who's suffering serious mental illness. Neither perp fits the core listens to Donald Trump demographic. That's not what's going on. It's simple what's going on. You are allowing violent criminals to run free. And violent criminals will do violent things. Some of them will break into a house and murder a family for a couple $100. Others will just randomly beat the shit out of somebody. We had one here recently, right where the homeless man stabbed to death a woman working at a furniture store. They have video of the homeless guy with his arm around a 20-year-old woman. leading her into a garage where he basically says, "This is where I rape you." And she managed to get away, thank God. He tried it again, and he was finally caught. And he'll just disappear because they're not going to tell us that he's probably already fucking out on the streets again. We need to be serious about this, folks. We need to be. We need prisons and we need mental health facilities. Okay? That's what we need. That's the only way you're going to solve this. You can't allow people to commit crimes and then serve 6 months. They're not rehabilitated. They're just going to learn some new tricks and hit the streets again. But yeah, Saki, all kinds of stuff that, she's downplayed. The late night flights of illegal migrants. They're earlier than you might like. I mean, flip it. That's misinformation. Joking about stuff, downplaying stuff, that's misinformation. This woman in Utah let a homeless man take a shower. He slit her throat. And the reason why I bring that up is because one of the comments. This is why people don't want to be too close to the homeless. In most cases, it is the issues that the homeless person has that makes them homeless. It's not being homeless that creates the issues. That's what it is. I've seen that. Okay? You can only stay with so many family members before you run out of family members and run out of friends. If you can't act normal in society, people don't want you in their house. I had friends who wanted to stay here, and I'm like, no, I've got a kid. No. But they don't want the truth out there. That's why they want to create a government agency to count. I mean, here's another perfect example. There is a black pastor, I believe. Yeah, Pastor Corey Brooks. And he was up on a roof. He was doing a rooftop vigil, okay, to get a community center to provide opportunities, which I think is a great thing. A man came up to me. This is him speaking. A man came up to me this past summer and asked me what I thought about all the crime going on and what we should do about it. I looked right at him and said, lock them all up. The man looked at me surprised. Then he said, aren't you worried about locking up too many black men? Our prisons are full of black men, and we can't be locking them up. And I said, they're not black. They're criminals. It's a black man, black pastor, love of Jesus in his heart. But that's the practical answer right there. You can't just sit there and talk about equity when they're criminals. They're criminals. All right? We need to keep focus on the fact that, 2020, we burned down major cities defending people who had committed crimes, were in the middle of committing crimes, and resisting arrest. That's not to say they deserve to die, but we need to look at that. These weren't people who were just singled out of a crowd and killed. All right? Accidents happened. Mistakes were made. Overreactions, all of that kind of crap. But we need to remember that we can't sit here and just burn down the country over equity, simply saying, well, maybe we shouldn't arrest this person because they're black. No. If there's something wrong in that police force, go after them. Arrest them. I love the show The Shield, but they should have been arrested. But look at this bullshit that they're doing. They took a rape kit, ran the DNA, and came back with a burglary suspect and arrested the woman. That was on the books, that they were allowed to do that. I mean, and now these same people want to make an agency to counter right-wing propaganda. Okie dokie. I mean, this is the practice. They don't want to lock people up, but this is a practice? Like, I have to agree. Believe it or not, I agreed 100%. You cannot be using rape kit DNA to go after crimes. I don't care about that. That's not fair. That's completely not fair. Those samples should be destroyed and they should not be compared. I would rather guilty people slip through the cracks on that particular issue. Can't believe they did that. All right. It's been running long. So, let's get into some of the best. NBC pulls Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg from halftime show after finding recordings of them using the N-word. Yeah, even recently, Snoop did this one. I was a fan of Snoop. I hate him now. Probably one of my most hated celebrities out there because, again, he's allowed to post that. To call fellow blacks coons because they don't vote on the side he likes to vote. And it's not like the Democrats are doing anything to help black folks. They're making their neighborhoods worse. They're making every neighborhood worse. But in the areas that are most racked with crime is where the Democrats fail miserably. They just let the criminals back out. They don't do gun enhancements. They don't do gang enhancements. And you think the Republicans are the enemy. Really? Okay. Yeah, here's the LA Mayor Garcetti setting world records for holding his breath. And that guy's full of shit. They'll stick kids in masks, but then they'll go to the Super Bowl and not wear a mask. Really? The people are asking the rhinos, the Republicans in name only, to defund the mandates. All right? People should be free to choose what they want to do. Okay? It'd be, like I've said before, it'd be a totally different story if the vaccine actually prevented you from getting it. It doesn't prevent it. Massacre's great white shark allowed to compete in women's 500 freestyle. Yeah. Well, I don't even want to get started on that debate right now. NBC takes gold in Olympics rating dive. Yeah, good. I'm glad people ignored it. We should have all ignored it. It was taking place in one of the most horrible nations in the world. A place where they even discriminate against their own people. If you're not Han, you ain't worth anything. You think America's racist? Wow, you should check out what the Chinese think about blacks. Man donates to trucker convoy under name Hunter Biden so Washington Post won't dox him. You know who would have loved doxing? Hitler. Oh, he would have loved that. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he practiced it, but, you know, in this modern age of being able to dox from afar, oh, God, he would have loved that. But y'all, you keep supporting that. Keep supporting the fact that, like, they dox people who donated to the truck convoy. Yeah, go ahead. Keep supporting Hitler. Liberal emerges from home to face eerie dystopia of people living normal lives. Yeah, you're cowards. I think, for the most part, unless you have a valid reason for being scared of COVID, I mean, I think you got to be liberal because you're too scared to do anything on your own. Nation prepares to celebrate second anniversary of 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Yeah. Didn't flatten anything, did it? Trudeau announces invasion of Poland. You know who else invaded Poland? Yeah, Hitler. Trudeau watching old footage of Tiananmen Square for ideas. Yeah, that guy really, I mean, again, look, he's a left-winger. So you're seeing what the left-wing party has in store. They want ultimate power. That's it. They want to be able to crush dissent. We've seen it. They're seizing bank accounts. You can cheer that, but wait until they seize your bank account or somebody that you know's bank account because they didn't like, because whatever opinion they had, it fell out of popularity. Okay. Walgreens security in San Francisco watched people shoplift and don't say a word. I walk in not wearing a mask and 2 employees ran up and put their hands on me to stop me from entering. Yeah, that's where we've gotten. Let the criminals get away with it, but if you're not wearing a mask, get the hell out. Trudeau stomping down on freedom. And he is. I mean, nobody's saying that they should say, don't get a vaccine. What they're saying is the mandates. It's over and done with. We've moved past that. Okay? It no longer makes any sense to cripple economies over these mandates. It's just not there. I found this one to be hilarious. Marx never predicted that in late-stage capitalism, the ruling bourgeois would identify as socialist while the working class supports capitalism. It's kind of backwards from the way he... We'll end with this one. Bronco, bringing it home. Those are all the things the Democrats are facing right now. CRT, defunding the police, the border crisis. I mean, That's all, everything that's right there. And yes, Hillary and the Russian collusion. They were manufacturing Steele dossier and all of that crap to make it look like Trump was in bed with the Russians. They were manufacturing lies. But yet, one of their own wants to start a government agency to combat right-wing misinformation. How much of that shit is based on is tied to the left's misinformation? Masks? Yep. Vax mandates? Yep. Inflation? Sure, they're lying about the cause of that. Border crisis? Oh, yeah, no problem there. Right? The Hillary-Russian collusion? Big fat lie. Defunding the police? Didn't work. Now they're lying about it. They're saying Republicans are for it. Biden? Giant lie. Giant misinformation. They squelched the story about his son's laptop before the election. They never brought up the fact that he's used racist language multiple times. CRT, they say it's not being taught, but then get upset when states ban it. Crack pipe inequity, again, left-wing Snopes, all those motherfuckers come out and say, oh, that's not true. That's not true. It's true. It's true. All of that is left misinformation. And you can cheer it, but remember, I used to be a liberal. Okay? I am glad that I never supported anything that is still affecting us today. I'm glad I never supported it. I supported a few good policies here and there, but, man, I'm telling you, the weapons ban that Clinton put down, that and his talk about employers paying for health insurance, no, I left. And if you leave someday, do you really want to leave behind all these slippery slopes? So before you support these people, think about what you're supporting. Because Purple State would have a completely different answer. And that's our aim. Is we want to take a giant chunk out of the Republicans and a giant chunk out of the Democrats, form a new party, and get those a-holes out of there. Impose things like term limits. Impose things like common sense on things like border and crime. Look, I want to give people second chances in life. But I'm not going to let a fucking insane person roam the streets. Not going to happen. So think about this. Think about what happened in the last election. You were mad because you didn't like Trump. You voted for a liar. You've been lied to nonstop since Biden took office. So think about that. The only way to undo his bullshit is to get Republicans in there so that he doesn't have a majority. Because his ideas are so stupid, even with a majority, he couldn't get some of his shit passed. And that should tell you a lot about their plans for America. All right. Copious out.